I'm Courtney Lee, manager of the Women's Skydiving Leadership Network, here to bring you the latest installment in our video lecture series. On our private Facebook page, a lot of women were asking questions about how to balance parenthood and skydiving. It came up as one of the #1 reasons why women leave the sport is becoming a parent or other family concerns. And there was a lot of discussion about it, and all of it was really awesome. So we wanted to bring you a video lecture series about that topic. And I thought, who better to do that than my friend Melissa Lowe. I was fortunate enough to meet Melissa when I was an AFF student, and she's been inspiring me ever since, and I know she's inspired countless others of us. She has a skydiving resume about as long as I am tall, gold medals in so many different disciplines, world records in again, different disciplines. And is just an all-around amazing person, a great friend, and an incredible presenter, as you're about to see. So I hope that you enjoy Melissa Lowe presenting Parenthood and Skydiving. Thanks.
Hello and welcome. Thanks for joining me in my presentation about skydiving and parenthood. Recently we started a conversation on Facebook, and I immediately had 3 takeaways. The first thing was that there is no one-size-fits-all answer or solution, because in skydiving, we all have different experiences, backgrounds, skill levels, etc. We get into the sport at different phases in our life. We have children at different ages. So there's no one-size-fits-all. However, I'll share my experience, and I also solicited experience from other moms to share with you to give a more broader perspective of being a skydiving parent. The second point is that we are clearly not talking about this enough, and I'm so glad that we started this conversation. I hope this video helps us continue that dialogue, because that brings me to the third point. We are not alone. There aren't very many skydivers in the world, and there are even fewer skydiving families. So I'm glad, and I hope that this video and presentation brings us together even more. Welcome to one of the most unique journeys in the world, being or becoming a skydiving parent. I want to start by giving background of my husband and I, just to give context of the experience that we share today. First, I'm a 3rd-generation skydiver with over 11,000 skydives. I made my first tandem when I was about 5 years old and did 11 jumps by the time I turned 11. Did my first solo jump at 16 and became a professional skydiver at the age of 19. I'm an instructor. I have several national competitions and world records under my belt, and my dad was a dropzone owner, so I grew up in the skydiving environment. My husband has over 9,000 jumps, has been in this sport nearly a decade, and he has earned almost every single instructional rating. He was a competitive swooper, and today he is a DZO. I've known several moms before and after I had a baby that have jumped actively or occasionally through the first and sometimes even second trimester. For me, I was of the advanced maternity age, so I found it very helpful to have a discussion with my OB of the different scenarios of skydiving pregnant. He did say something that completely resonated with me, and even though it probably would have been unlikely, I jumped a high-performance parachute, so I sometimes have hard openings. And what he said was, if you have a hard opening, there is a possibility that you could detach the placenta from the uterus. That, coupled with imagining myself in other people's shoes, jumping with a pregnant lady, because I'm often a load organizer, AFF instructor, or coach, I thought what I would be thinking about if I were jumping with a pregnant woman would be that I'd be worried about them the whole entire skydive. And I thought that to be unfair. So I very quickly decided not to jump through my pregnancy. Now trust me, it was so hard. I was bored out of my mind. I was doing whatever I can to work out. I was doing yoga at home. I was walking, going out for hikes. I was going to little craft fairs, things that I normally don't do, but I was just looking for anything to entertain my time because I was bored out of my mind during pregnancy. But ultimately, skydiving pregnant is a decision between you and your partner. One of the things I said in the very beginning is that, one, we are not talking about this enough, and the other is that we're not alone. So I'm thrilled to introduce other moms in skydiving and share their experience. From Katie Hawkins, a skydiving instructor, mom, and beautiful woman. People judge me for being a mother and a skydiver. They go on about the irresponsible dangers and death. My kids are aware of the dangers and death. They're aware of why I do this as well. I'm alive with love from the sky. My kids have learned you can choose to judge the ones who love to live, or you can love to live. As a mom of 2 kids, this family chooses to love and live. Katie Hawkins. I'm excited to introduce this mom as well. She is near and dear to me, and most people know her kids because they are the incredible, talented children of the team that make up Aspire. It's been quite a ride, lots of challenges and many rewards. It's been a long time for me since the early days. I remember many days where I was just too tired to jump. So after Kaylee, I probably made 30 jumps that summer. The following summer, the numbers were more normal again. After Noah was born, I think even less. But that following year, a bit more normal. I do always remember wishing there was just a little swing set for them to play on. It was a big challenge at the times of keeping them occupied. I feel the biggest reward is how social children growing up on drop zones become. They don't really get a chance to be shy. Being around a bunch of adults that find a way not to always take life so seriously and have an outlet that keeps the mind fresh and sharp, I believe helps kids to see the world in a different way. I feel my kids have so many more aunts and uncles looking out for them. The more adults that can help shape and mold and love a child in a positive way is a blessing. We have such a great community to have that experience. As far as a drop zone being an adult playground, I feel it's up to the parents to know the boundaries of when kids should be taken home for the evening. Like normal bar, kids aren't allowed past 10 p.m. in most places. This has seemed like a good guideline to keep in place while at the DZ as well. I also feel with so many tunnels opening, a new experience for kids to get a better idea of what their parents are doing and sharing that interest that they are now able to share that bond. I think you will see more families out at drop zones, or I hope for the future kids and families, that's how it'll be. This next mama is a badass mom. She has been a skydiving instructor, she films 4-way FS teams, and she's been doing it for a long time. She just had her 4th child, Karen Dalton. 1. Risk tolerance. How the lines shift. It doesn't have to be all or nothing quit skydiving, but we should be even more conscious of choosing skydives within our ability to stay safe and with a purpose. Like, I'm really good at some things, but not vertical bigways, so I choose not to pursue vertical bigway camps, etc. 2. Time and money. Is that a big shift in priorities? It's just really hard to justify a lot of fun jumping, especially if living paycheck to paycheck or not having a 529 for the child. Yes, we all deserve to continue doing the things we love, but having kids means we have to grow up and prepare for our future. So should we spend all our extra money on skydiving, or make sure we save some for college? 3. Your partner. We agreed to keep jumping, but decided that the risk of a plane crash was too much for both of us to ever be on the same jump plane, so we haven't jumped together since. To each their own with the decisions as to which jumps they do. The questions we need to ask is, will our children be taken care of, physically, emotionally, financially, if anything were to happen to us? Another general question to ask ourselves is, are we living our lives in a way we would want our children to emulate? Another mom who is near and dear to me, I share doing world records with. She also has been a swoop competitor, hardcore skydiving mom, Jessie Brownlow. Skydiving while pregnant is a personal decision that every woman should make on her own while taking into account experience, currency, and comfort level with exposure to risk. For me, grounding myself when I felt perfectly capable of jumping would have been a greater detriment to my state of mind than any physical risk I may have been assuming. My advice is to listen to your body. It will let you know when it's time to slow down. What I'd like to do is share my experience of some memories I had as a kid growing up in the drop zone, and now as a mom having a kid, and whether to bring my son to the drop zone or not. Some of my earliest memories are just being able to tromp around at the skydiving center. And like Julie Wittenberg shared in her experience, is very much the same and true for me, as I felt that all the skydivers took responsibility for me and went out of their way to make sure that I was safe, taken care of, entertained, and I feel like I had an incredibly worldly experience from all these skydivers that would come to the drop zone. On the flip side of that, there were often times I was bored out of my mind and I didn't want to be in the drop zone, and I did crave being around other kids. At times, other skydivers did bring their kids, which made the day go by so much faster and would be so much more fun. However, that wasn't always the case. So I believe now, as a mom, there needs to be some sort of balance. Other things to consider is the time when I was a child to now when I have a child. The times are totally different. To bring the kid to the drop zone or to not bring baby on drop zone? That is the question. My husband and I find that we have to strategize on how to make this work, and sometimes it's more based on circumstance than anything else. So my husband does own a drop zone, and on the weekends he's busy doing that. I now have a Monday through Friday job where I work from home. On the weekends, I will choose to spend one day, maybe a half a day out at the drop zone. It's not a full day, and I am watching him exclusively. I don't normally skydive when at my husband's drop zone. Sometimes we will have someone be able to watch him, so I can squeeze in a jump. However, that's not always the case. The other scenario we have to strategize is now that my husband owns a drop zone, he's pretty much busy throughout the summers, spring and fall. And that's when a lot of events that I like to travel to are being held. So that means we need to strategize on sitters. Do I need to travel with him and bring him? Are there sitters there? I am very fortunate to have a network of friends and family around the world to help me have someone watch him so I can go skydive. I will give an example of last year. I held a sequential world record at Skydive Chicago, and I have a network of friends there. So I had a girlfriend who has a daughter similar age as our son, and she was able to watch him several days. And then my cousins are out there, so they were able to watch him the remaining days. And how they would map out their day was, some of it would be at the skydiving center, but they would also have their exclusive attention. And my cousin had kids and my friend had a daughter, so they were able to do other things with each other. And it just made the days so much easier and entertained for our son, so he felt that he wasn't being excluded. They would come out on some jumps when I was boarding the plane so I can say hey to my kiddo, do a couple dirt dives, and have some fun. But I really try to make sure that my son is going to be fulfilled when he goes and has a good time at the drop zone, because I want those to be his memories. Because a lot of times I was just toted along to the drop zone and bored out of my mind. It takes a lot of juggling to make it work, especially if I go to a drop zone that I don't have as big of a network. And the cost of traveling is really expensive. I went from doing 1,000 to 800 jumps a year to now doing about 100 to 200 jumps a year. And I find I do something a lot as Karen Dalton said in her advice, was, yes, now I choose to do certain events so I can feel fulfilled and happy in my skydiving as my husband gets to as his, because it is a lot to balance time and money. It's a huge thing. And this goes right back to the beginning, is communicating with your partner, because it is a lot to balance and consider. When you have it all written down on paper of what your expectations and goals are, it kind of makes it a little bit easier. Now my husband and I find it more of a juggling or a puzzle, like how do we make these pieces work so we can do what we love to do? It's a challenge, but we make it work. When to jump after baby. This is also another personal decision. I believe that the common thing that OBGYNs will say is to wait 6 weeks after having baby, just because our muscles and joints are a lot looser when we're pregnant, and about 6 weeks it takes our body to recover from that. When I had our son, I had an emergency C-section. It took me about 2 weeks to walk upright, and even though our OB cleared me to jump after 6 weeks, I physically wasn't ready. Mentally, I could not wait to get back up in the sky, but I felt awful. I was not ready. I was so sore. So I waited another 2 weeks. So it was 8 weeks after having our son that I made my first jump. Several things to consider in getting back up into the sky. Take a refresher course. I believe that this will help you just get your mind back in the game, get the procedures top of mind. For myself, I taught AFF classes all throughout my pregnancy, so I felt ready, current, and refreshed on the day-to-day and emergency procedures. The next thing to consider is your equipment. For myself, I had gained 30 pounds. I could not fit into my jumpsuit. I could hardly fit in my container. And I had a Velocity 75 in my container. So those are things to consider. Do you want to upsize? Do you need to borrow a jumpsuit? Are you going to jump in jeans and a t-shirt? Because there are things to consider. Depending on your experience, you may want to get with your instructor just to go over all of those things to feel comfortable and safe. I feel jumping after pregnancy, there are a lot of new things that will be introduced on your jump depending on your experience. Some moms are back in their skinny jeans. That was not this girl's story. For myself, I did a 2-way free fly jump with my husband. I wore jeans and a t-shirt, taking safety precautions in mind, tucking in my shirt, making sure my handles weren't going to be obstructed. I wore my container, and yes, I did jump my Velocity 75. I did this because my dad had this advice: do what you know. And I have thousands and thousands and thousands of jumps on my velocities. I've jumped velocities since the year 2000. So it was very current in my mind, and I knew I was ready. I didn't feel that I was taking a bigger risk. In fact, before pregnancy, I was jumping my 75 with a lot of weight as an AFF instructor for some of my students that I jumped with. The jump went fine, the landing went fine, but what happened was I needed to run out my landing, and my body was not ready for that vigorous movement. So I decided to upsize. The other thing I wanted to upsize, and I upsized pretty dramatically, I went from a Velocity 75 to a Spectre 120, is after that first jump when I got current and I was so happy, feeling like myself again, was that I just wanted to take things a little bit slower. And it took me a while, and I allowed myself some time just to get current and get the movements, feeling like myself wholly again. Did I go back to a cross brace canopy? All right, I am going to be really vulnerable here for a moment, and I want to share an experience. I was recently at a world record camp a few months ago. And I had something that has happened a couple of times. For skydiving, for me, I love doing world record events and I like supporting them. That is pretty much my focus in the sport these days. I attended this event and there was a lot of crazy scenarios happening. There were a lot of cutaways, there was a canopy collision, there was a free fall collision, a lot of personalities were clashing. And to be honest, on the plane ride up, I was thinking, what the hell am I doing? Why am I putting myself in this situation? To backstep a little bit, when I was younger, watching my dad organize world records, I watched somebody go in that participated in the record. And it's part of my psyche. I think about the worst case scenarios because I've been in the sport for a long time. I've seen a lot of stuff. So it's in here, and I would be delusional to think that nothing is ever going to happen to me. The only way that I feel that I conquer this, now this is what works for me because I believe that we all have this mental battle somewhere inside, is that I recognize when I'm okay, everything around me is okay. I trust my ability. I trust my experience. I feel now that I have been doing this for a really long time, I have been an instructor, my perception of the sport, that I know I'm not invincible, but I am going to be aware. I am going to do everything in my power to be safe and mentally have to be okay. I mentally have to conquer those thoughts, those fears, those doubts of what I'm doing, because after I get down from those jumps and everything is okay, I know that's why I'm doing what I'm doing, because I am so happy. I am so fulfilled. I feel like I'm meeting my sense of purpose. Someone asked me, well, okay, you say you're going to be okay, and you conquer your thoughts. Like, what is that piece that helps you connect the dots to conquer the self-doubt and worry in your mind and the what if roller coaster? And it's seriously, for me, what works is so incredibly simple, it's going to seem too easy, is that I really close my eyes and I take a deep breath. I visualize the skydive, a perfect skydive. And I don't let anything around me disrupt that vision. And it's as simple as that. I really believe that we teach in this sport that we say in the sport that it's 90% mental, 10% physical. But we often teach the physical part and we often miss this mental part. What did your instructors tell you in AFF all the time? Breathe and relax. It is the same when you're a world-class skydiving athlete. And I feel the focus when I am calm, comfortable, and clear of what my goals are on that skydive, that everything around me falls into place. The moment that I have doubt, the moment that I let fear overrun my mind, is when things are chaotic and go wrong. I have definitely honed in this skill more so now that I am a parent, because I want to do everything within my power to be safe and stay alive, because I don't want to miss my kid's life. There are so many more things that we could talk about in this presentation. Primarily, I want to do this just because I believe that opening up and continuing this dialogue is incredibly important, as well as having us skydiving families connect, because I really think that's the glue to help each other in this sport and to be able to answer questions, be there for each other and support each other. We are not alone. We are not the only skydiving families out there. I support and encourage you to reach out to me for any advice, questions. I am here for you. I support you on your journey. And thank you so much. I hope to see you out at the drop zone soon.
Rhythm Skydiving 101, the first app designed specifically for the new skydiver. Over 50 topics will get you from the ground to the air and back again. Available free for both Android and iPhone. Download Rhythm Skydiving 101 now and make every skydive count.